Item 2 is approval of the agenda.
So to approve.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion?
I have, Chairman, just some minor corrections on spelling and words. On page 4, at the top.
That's approval of the minutes.
Oh, the agenda, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Getting ahead of myself.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 3, citizens' comments.
There are no citizens' comments, none.
Thank you. Number 4, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Discussion?
On page 4, towards the upper right, it starts out, says, reason stated. There is a note on the final plat, the owner of the owner. I think of the owner should be stricken there. Second one out of 3 is on page 6. Actually, there's 2 on this page. Item 10 says Mitchell stated he was glad to hear all the interest that is steering to Stu in Fairview. I think that started. I don't think we were steering. At the bottom, it says Anderson stated that is a defiant. I think the word defiant, is that correct? At the bottom of page 6. At the bottom.
A definite.
Anderson stated that it is. Next to the bottom line.
I think it's supposed to be definite.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
That being a problem for the city. I think that's what it was. I think that's-
That makes more sense.
I think that's.
And finally, on page 7, second paragraph, towards the bottom, it says Beata stated he would like to just, I think it's supposed to be throw that out. Like I said, they're minor things, but, and that's all I have.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5, recommendations. We have none. Number 6, bonds. Mr. Humber?
Bonds, we have 2 for leverage management subdivisions that are coming to expiration on October 1st, one on October 31st and one on October 1st. So I talked to Gary McDonald about both of these, and he understands that we're going to vote to call these until he replaces them. He understands it, so he will be replacing them. He's also requesting a reduction in one of them because of the work he's already done, but Will hasn't looked at it yet to give a recommendation on it, but he'll have time to get that done. So he understands what the situation is, and we have to call it until, we have to call him now, and then when he replaces it, we'll accept that.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm going to recuse myself from voting on this.
Mr. Mangum's recusing himself. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The next one is the Walmart spoil site.
Did that cover 6-1 and 6-2?
Yeah, it covers 6.62 for 11.
Okay, I didn't, did we make note of that? Or were we just dealing with 6-1?
You could, your motion can be to call both of them when they're not renewed by the expiration time.
I don't think that was put in the, I don't think that was part of it. She says no. I think we're good if you just read 6-2.
Okay, well, what I did was I announced bonds and I let Mr. Humber start, and he spoke on 6-1 and 2 at the same time. So do we need to do them separately?
You can do it separately, you can do it at the same time, if you're gonna do it at the same time, you need to designate that your motion is to, call 6.1, 6.2, whatever it matters, if they're not reviewed prior to the expiration.
Okay,
Point is just to make sure that we,
exactly.
So is that the way the motion should read?
Yes, sir, or you can build them one at a time.
I think all we need to do is bring up 6-2 and vote on it.
Oh, you want to vote on second?
I'll just,
Just to clarify.
Yeah, move to call 6.2.
second.
I'll also be recusing myself on this one as well.
Mr. Mangrum will recuse himself on 6.2. We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, the next one is the Walmart spoil site. It's a letter of credit for $68,000. It's going to expire on October 3rd. So it needs to be called. Sorry. It needs to be called unless it is replaced prior to that date.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Yes.
You need to read the engineer's report on that, if
Okay.
you don't mind,
Oh, yes.
into the record.
Okay, the engineering report for item 6.3, Walmart spoils irrevocable letter of credit for the site in the amount of $68,000. The bond expires October 3rd, 2014. Engineering comments, this site has not obtained final stabilization. It is recommended not to reduce the letter of credit amount at this time. That's all.
Okay. 6.3, we were discussing calling the bond, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this says recommend not to reduce the letter of
Right, that's-
credit. Can you,
He's just making a comment that, I believe Will, Mr. Hall, hasn't Will looked at that site recently and said that it's not in any shape to reduce?
Yes, sir. And the work that they've done out there right now, that they've done this week, will not, in my opinion, will not help this cause. The scratching that they done and the throwing the seed out on top of the clay dirt and gravel and everything, it's not gonna take hold. I think that it's actually possibly, someone else probably needs to look at it for hydro seeding. So, but Will doesn't think it's gonna grow out there, and many times I've been out to look at it, it's weeds mostly, it's very little grass that was sowed out there that's come up.
But it's basically 6.3 just to call it bond,
Yes.
period.
okay, I just wanted to clarify because it says reduce, not to reduce the letter of credit. And we were talking about calling a bond, so. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 7, old business. 7.1, discuss and or take action on setting the bond amount for Hickory Springs subdivision. Mr. Beata, would you like to read the comments on that?
The engineering comments on this item number, as required by the subdivision regulations, performance bond amounts are to be set at 125% of the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate for the proposed sidewalk and drainage ditch improvements for this subdivision is $35,000. It is recommended that the bond amount be set at $43,750. That's all. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 8, new business. 8.1 is discuss and/or take action on the islands. There are no engineering comments on this item.
Madam Chairman, what I'm handing out is what our code says, and what I highlighted yellow on that page is what our code says now pertaining to those islands and the planning requirement.
When these islands are established, they will have to be maintained by the city.
For my edification, Madam Chairman, what islands are we referring to?
When a subdivision is, I guess when the infrastructure is put in, they're the, islands that are like in the center that for planting of like a cul-de-sac at the end of a street.
Yeah.
If these are maintained by the city, I don't think it's a good idea for us to have them at all.
Thanks. I just want to make sure there were no specific islands we were talking about.
I
Just
think
a
these are
general- just a
future,
general statement.
right? Future islands.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
These islands are very aesthetically pleasing, but I see that they do have a lot of detriments, one being the maintenance, the upkeep. I think you have trouble with large vehicles turning, people running into them. So I think to judge it based on just aesthetics and how it looks would be, I don't think that would be pleasing to do that for the overall benefit of the city. Just my comments.
I think, I agree with the, having the city upkeep them. I think that's silly, but, if we could just put wording in there, if a subdivision is going to have, plan to have these islands, then they should have the proper means to, maintain them and take care of them.
Like if they establish an HOA, then the HOA would maintain the islands.
Yes.
But the question is gonna be, what happens when when it dissipates, where it's gone, where it's no more? Who's gonna take care of it then? The city will.
Yeah.
Was the sole purpose of these islands just for aesthetics?
Yes. The problem that we were running into several years ago is when we had to establish different diameters for the turnarounds in the cul-de-sac because of fire engines, ambulances, things like this, especially on some of the streets that were narrow around there we seen where we had a problem. They couldn't get out or couldn't leave. So we made them certain widths. I forget what the footage is on, around 50 foot, something like that. Anybody remember that? Wayne?
Yeah, I think they're 50 foot.
Something similar to that. So if we're gonna take a center spot up in that, I think it's gonna reduce the turning radius of some of the vehicles that we have anyway. Some of the larger fire trucks would be a great example. So, yeah, for that reason, I would think that we should do away with them.
Right.
When the foliage in those things tends to not survive very well because it's separated from irrigation, it's surrounded by asphalt, and they just tend to dry out if they're not maintained or irrigated. And I suspect most of these islands are not going to be irrigated, other than natural rainfall.
If we were talking about something similar to what we have in front of City Hall that goes down into something that turns around, it's a little bit different than that because you can plan on the diameter of the upkeep and the watering and everything else, but just a single island is, I think is inappropriate, but.
Right.
Would anyone like to propose a motion on what we'd like to do about violence?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we remove any and all designations or requirements of the islands from the subdivision regulations in its entirety.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair, Mr. Cantrell, are we really going to set a hearing for this to be considered after public hearing to be removed?
Subdivision reg.
It's a subdivision reg, am I right, Larry? We don't have to do that.
Removing the subdivision regulations requires a hearing.
And you can't wait till you couldn't place that.
Right, I mean, I want to say if the motion could include setting a date, setting a date for a public hearing, so you can open for any public input into whether this should be removed.
A question, Larry, and he brought it up. I mean, is it required to have a public hearing? I'm not opposed to it, but is it required for a subdivision regulation? Okay.
I would amend my motion, Madam Chair, to add to have call a public hearing for the purpose of taking testimony from the public in regards to this matter.
Second.
Okay,
When do you want to set the next meeting?
okay.
Set the meeting at, what's the next meeting date?
October
October the 7th.
7th. 14th.
14th? So we would set the date as October 14th.
Okay, so we will plan a public hearing before the meeting on October 14th.
6 p.m.
And we will take action on this item after the hearing.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion, an amended motion for that, and a second. Any more discussion?
Just as a policy, there's nothing in our regulations that says that we have to do this, but the Planning Commission has the authority to change the subdivision regs. But I think sometimes with something important like this, that if we could send a memo to the Board of Commissioners, just informing them that the Planning Commission's going to make this change, and if they have any recommendations or possible comments on it, I would like to hear that, if that's, just to make them aware of what's transpiring here.
Or we can do, sure, that's what
It's just a policy, it's not a,
the commission would like us to do with the plan.
it would be just, they've got a lot of things to handle, so I just think something like this, they're the elected officials and have to take the heat on stuff, so.
It would have to be added for the next meeting or the meeting after that, so that they'll have that information prior to us making a decision on the 14th. We don't want to hold that up again.
Right.
Is that typical that we would do it that way?
No.
No, but I'm just recommending it as a policy, that's all.
We put the minutes of the meeting after.
I would say as a member of the Board of Commissioners that either they attend these meetings or look at our minutes to see what we've decided here as a planning commission. That's just me. I don't think, it needs to be added to their agenda.
City Attorney Cantrell, is there anything usual and customary about that sort of protocol?
No, sometimes the planning commission does that. It's not atypical, but it's not typical that they do it. That's your decision. There's no legal requirement that you notify the board. Now, anytime you have a public hearing, it's got to be run in the newspaper.
Right.
So they're going to see it there, but if you want to have a request it doesn't even really need to be part of your motion. If the board just feels that this commission wants notice sent to the Board of Commissioners that you're going to consider that and have a public hearing, that's fine. And also your agenda for the next meeting will be duly published, so they'll have plenty of time. If they look at it, they can see it.
All I'm saying is I don't think that it needs, decisions we make here, unless it needs to go to the Board of Commissioners, I don't believe that it needs to go to the Board of Commissioners. I believe that they're informed when we make decisions by, reviewing what we've decided in our meetings, that we have the authority to decide.
That's this board's call. If they want to do that, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. The last time I remember something that the planning commission, now they typically will have maybe workshops where they're invited, where it involves both boards. But the last time I remember that they specifically requested that something be sent to each board member, and I could be wrong, but the last one I remember was when they were passing the land use map. Land use map is the exclusive jurisdiction of this board, but it certainly affects the Board of Commissioners. And they did send a notice to them that they were going to consider voting on the land use map at the next meeting. That's just the last one I remember. There's certainly not anything wrong with you sending it. There's not anything wrong if you don't send it. It's your decision.
And I'm not saying that we don't need to inform or let people know. I just don't think it needs to be a part of their agenda, something we've already voted on and decided.
Again, that's this board's decision. Nothing requires that.
Well, as you said, it's going to be advertised. I think it's a good idea, but it's not necessary to do because they're going to have full knowledge, like every other citizen in the town's going to have knowledge that's going to happen. So I really don't like setting precedents on stuff like that right there because it just grow on us. But I know I look at all the agendas all the time of everything that's going on. So, and it's going to be advertised in the paper. So.
I tend to agree with that.
I'd like to see it go ahead with the motion that's just on the table.
Okay. Mr. Rose, amended motion. We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 9, reports and discussion and information. 9.1, Director of Planning and Codes, Mr. Humber.
I just have a brief report tonight, just to report on last month's building activity. We issued, this is for August, we issued 11 permits for a total value of $1.2 million. We issued permits for 5 houses and 2 in July, so we have actually 7 housing starts in 2 months.
Great.
Also, the work is progressing on the Hometown Pets store in Bowie Commons. I would just estimate they could be open by, surely by the middle of October. So that new business is getting closer to opening. I also want to remind the Planning Commission members of our meeting on October 1st. A meeting we're going to have concerning economic development. We've got a really good group of people coming in that are going to talk to us about economic development. I think it'd be very helpful for each of you if you could be at this meeting and come in, and we're going to have lunch, and so we're going to try to have that.
What day is that? October 1st, but what day is that?
That's Wednesday.
Wednesday, October 1st.
Wednesday, October 1st, I'm sorry, yeah.
And what time does that begin?
11 a.m. until 2 p.m.
Where's that venue at here?
It's gonna be at, no, at Camp Marymount,
Camp Marymount?
Camp Marymount.
Marymount.
Do you know what building? Is it going to be at
Main building.
Their main dining hall.
The
dining hall?
Dining
Okay.
hall.
Is that all?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's all I have,
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry.
Okay, our city engineer's not present tonight. 9.3, City Attorney, Mr. Cantrell.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Okay. City Manager, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to elaborate a little bit more on what Mr. Humber has mentioned. This is going to, first off, I'd like to encourage every one of you to make it if you can. Because a lot of these decisions that will be made there, y'all will be making them here as a planning commission. One of the main speakers is going to be Michael Adams from the Water Authority of Dixon. And he's also, we're trying to get him to bring in a couple of the board members of the WADC. But we have several people with TVA, Retail and Industrial Development Center, that will help promote possibly businesses to our community. And it just would encourage you all, if you can, to come and be a part of this. It's a 3-hour deal, and the way it's going to be structured, we'll let you know as far as an agenda later. But more than likely, we will have 2 or 3 speakers, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion. So we'll separate that up into the people that come so we can get some ideas. And that's part of what Frank and I have been going to some of these meetings, like the Tennessee, Kentucky retail convention downtown at the Nashville Convention Center. Most of our information came from the roundtable discussions and what other cities are doing. And so I think this will be very informative for everybody, as well as not only the Planning Commission, but the BOC also. So I would, here again, would encourage you to try to make it there if you can. Thank you. That's all I have tonight.
Item number 10 is communication from the Planning Commission members. Mr. Dowdy?
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Mitchell?
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Lohman?
I have nothing either.
Mr. Rowe?
I always have something. First of all, I appreciate everyone that attended the workshop or the training session with the Tennessee chapter of the American Planning Association. And there was a 4-hour seminar. I think 5 out of the 9 commissioners attended, including Commissioner Sutton, and Codes Director Humber attended that, and it was very informative. I think it's positive for this commission and for this city to have experienced people when you're making decisions such as we do. There was around 25 or 30 people there, and Fairview had 6. We had the most people in the region. So that's exciting. There's some real positive things that are going on in this city. And I thank all the other commissioners for taking that interest. Plus, it's required that the plan commissioners have at least 4 hours of training every year, and that completed most of our training for that year, for this year. So that's encouraging. The second thing I have is that as the Parks Commission representative from the Planning Commission, I think it's important that at least every quarter that I come before the Plan Commission and give an overview of what's going on. Recently, we were tasked by the Board of Commissioners to come up with a citywide park plan, a blueprint of recreation and facilities that we see the city needs from a 5 to 10 year outlook. And it's a pretty a massive task to take on, but I'm excited about it. And it's been presented to us, the Park Commission, as that the citizens do all the work, not just the city park staff. So it's a massive undertaking. They are requesting a response by March, so they could have 1 or 2 items for the next budget year that they could put into the city budget and make happen. And I think that's encouraging to do it that way, other than to just look at a big, massive plan and say, I don't know how we're going to do it. We can take it one step at a time. So I'm encouraged by that. And I've also am going to request some help from the citizens in Fairview that have an interest, soccer moms, baseball moms and families, people who have an interest in the splash pads, dog parks, to come and help us as a subcommittee to make phone calls, find out pricing, and help us as a citywide project, not just 5 or 7 commissioners. The other item I had is, last time we discussed, I believe, and made a motion about requesting a sidewalk fee schedule, and I just wanted to know if there's an update on that, Mr. Humber. And the second thing, too, is back in May, we discussed the same thing, only in open space in the subregs, that we were looking from the Board of Commissioners to have a fee schedule. These are 2 important tools that the Plan Commission needs to move forward when we're making decisions. So I just wanted to know if there's an update to that, just to inform people.
Well, the sidewalks, we had part of our workshop last month. So we took the sort of the results of the workshop to the Board of Commissioners, and I believe that they have taken it under advisement at this time. And it's, so I don't know when it'll come back up, but I think it's something they wanted to give full consideration to. Now, the open space, we haven't had that. We really need to have a workshop on that first before we goes any further, to talk about what we think would be a fair and equitable fee for that, in lieu of that requirement. So we can do that next meeting if that's what the wishes of the board are.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Mangrum?
The only thing that I have is I'm glad Mr. Rowe brought it up. The training seminar that some of y'all attended, I don't know who organized that to see who from this board wanted to attend that meeting. I was actually alarmed when one of the other planning commission members called me that day. It was about 30 minutes before the meeting started and asked me, was I going? I said, I hadn't heard anything about it since the planning commission meeting, so it was very alarming that it wasn't asked upon all the members of this board to try to attend that. So that's all I have.
I'm going to ask that we get the PowerPoint together from that meeting, and each one of the members get a copy of that, because there were some things brought up that I feel like, we've done a little differently as a planning commission, so we need to kind of get copies of that and be able to look over it.
It's an excellent idea.
Very good.
And I am very sorry that you didn't get on the list. That was not something that I knew happened.
I'd have liked to attend it, but it's over with now, so.
Well, we'll make sure the PowerPoint, if we need to even do a workshop to discuss that PowerPoint as a group, I think that would be a good time for the Board of Commissioners to join us in that, because there were items that pertained to them as well that was brought up at that meeting, so.
And we might want to have a little system in place, because I didn't get notified about this either. Unfortunately, I missed the last PC meeting, so I knew nothing about this until after it was over. So I think we should have some sort of internal protocol where we can at least advise everyone that sits on the commission about these opportunities.
I thought that an email went out to everyone, letting everyone know when it was, and
Didn't get one.
I got a reminder also.
I got an email and a reminder. So,
But anyway.
Email addresses.
right, but I mean, I will make sure next time that something happens that I personally email everyone about it. Mr. Sutton?
It was very interesting. There were some things that was brought up that we're going to have to make some changes in some of our codes. And I think they're coming up on future agendas that we're able to discuss, and a lot of the members had a lot of input into it. It was very good. Mr. Rowe brought it up to our attention that we had this opportunity to do it, and it's Tennessee.
Chapter of the American Planning Association.
And they have a lot of things, not just that one.
That's where our books came from, the little books that were passed out.
Right, and so I think the membership that we belong to it now, and we'll be getting notification for it. It was very informative for me. And so I enjoyed it. Everybody gets a chance to go to it, and we can download it or whatever.
There's a
I actually think
PowerPoint
we
I
need to have a
believe we can
workshop on
copy.
it for some of the questions that were brought up. That needs to be part of the codes department where we're looking at changes, because there's some things we're gonna have to change. Moving along, I want to remind everybody of Nature Fest this weekend at Bowie Park. It runs from 10 to 4. Everyone's invited to come out. I think this is probably going to be one of the biggest as far as vendors goes that we've had in years and years and years and years. I think the weather's supposed to be perfect. Don't blame me for it if it's not. So bring the kids, bring everybody out there. We're going to have parking for handicap. Be able to get them back and forth to the different events now. So don't let that bother you for coming into the park. The other thing, there's going to be a 5K run that benefits the Athletic Association for the high school.
Donna Bledsoe.
Yeah, okay. And that starts at 7. It starts at 7, and the registration starts about that time also, if I'm not mistaken. Are they going to be over in the parking lot? Somebody help me out here.
The registration starts at 7 and the race starts at 8.
And in the registration going to be at Francis parking lot?
I think so, yes, sir.
And
I know the
so-
parking is.
Yeah, so, everybody join for both things. Jeremy Durham's going to do the opening speech for the Nature Fest. So they're going to have the band there. We're going to have the color guard there. It's going to be an exciting day for everybody, so please try to come out. That's all I got.
Mr. Butler?
Nothing at this time, Madam Chairman.
Mr. Beata?
I have nothing further to add.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to address something to go back to Mr. Mangram's concerns. We actually started it this week on reviewing, Brandy and I and Tom and Frank reviewing the BOC meetings right after the meeting so that nothing gets lost in the trail of paperwork. And this will be one of the things that's on the agenda in the morning, if there's anything, recommendations or anything, so they can already get on the minutes, so that if there is any reminders that we need to do, this is something new that we've sort of took on our own to do, so that all the boards will know what's on your agenda, and if it is something that needs to be signed up for. And here again, we're sorry about it, but I don't know where the ball was let down at, but I wish all of you were there. And, there will be a reminder sent out on this economic meeting we're going to have. And, I don't know whether that can be considered part of training or not, but hopefully it can be, so. So I believe it will. But anyway, we are starting a way to sort of follow up on things real quick while it's fresh in our mind. and so that we can be put on the agenda real quick. So Sharon can have a copies of what we need to go ahead and put on the agenda, so. And that meeting is scheduled at, I believe, 10 a.m. in the morning. Am I right on that? Yeah, okay. It's a follow-up after the meetings, so that we won't let the ball down, is our goal for that.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's a great idea. I want to make sure that, you know, it doesn't happen again, that anybody's left out. If something like this comes up, I personally will email everyone on this commission and let you know what's going on. There was, that meeting was very exciting, and a lot of good information came out of it. There are a few things that we have done that I think that we just didn't know that, you know, the rules. So I think if we have a workshop and go over the PowerPoint as a group, it would be a good idea for that, because there were a few things that I thought were okay and they're not. And, you know, so we just need to kind of go over the rules and check that out. I really appreciate Mr. Humber, Mr. Hall, and all of our staff. Y'all are doing such a good job to just bring new business and seek out new business, and you know, just to keep this momentum going with our city. And this is a very exciting time in our city, and I just encourage everyone. I see it happening at my store and other stores. People are really embracing shopping in their own town, keeping their money in their own town. It's only going to help Fairview and help us to, you know, change perception of our city with everything that's exciting and new going on right now. So I appreciate the efforts. I see you working way more than, you know, the hours that, you know, you're supposed to be here, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all the commissioners up here on the Planning Commission, you know, coming to the meetings and checking things out and voting and really investigating before you make your decision. So anyway, just shop in Fairview, keep your money here, and, you know, we'll all prosper. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.